Be all welcome to the channel. Today, we bring the story of Marta, a 38-year-old woman, an experienced caregiver who was fired by, opens quotes, not having the profile of the house. Translating, she was too good for the boss' fragile ego. With no money, with late rent and dignity in the back pocket, Marta did what a lot of people do in silence, pretended. If you passed someone else to get a new job, and for 6 months lived a life that wasn't hers. Between geriatric diapers, family secrets, and warm coffees, she held the lie in the bone, until past and conscience itself knocked on the door. And spoiler, they hit hard. Want to know how this lie sustained for 6 months and what happened when the truth began to leak through the cracks? So stay with us until the end of the video and already take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel. Here we bring real, intense, and twisting stories every day. Curitiba, Tuesday, 7:12 a.m. Cloudy sky, that cold that seems to poke the soul just to remember that you still feel something. Marta, 38, was holding the coffee cup as a remnant of dignity. I already knew what was ahead. The employer did not serve coffee, served indirect. "Martha, can I talk to you a minute?" said Dona Lucia. Wrapped in a white robe that looked like a cross between hotel towel and pure egocentrism, Marta already knew. When the minute came with this tone, it was disguised dismissal of courtesy. "Of course, Dona Lucia." They entered the living room, that place where no one was ever, but everything had to be impeccable. Lucia sat like receiving the UN entourage. Martha stood. "We hear from the family, talked, and we feel that maybe you don't have exactly the profile we look for this house." Ready, there it was, the profile. This word that fits everything. Veiled racism, class prejudice, or simply the fact that Marta read newspaper and not laughed at the jokes of the little lord who confused Alzheimer's difficult way. "I understand," Marta said without blinking. She understood. He understood that being too good bothers. That talking right and taking care can seem like a threat. That maid cannot seem cultured, only hardworking. He left the house with his plastic bag and his beaten coat. At the Cabral terminal, he stared at the reflection on the Tubo station glass. An exhausted, intelligent, invisible woman. I wanted to laugh if you didn't want to cry first. The rent would win in 5 days. The daughter needed a new uniform, and the bank account balance was worthy of a pics of mercy. It was then that the phone vibrated. Message from Jurema, friend of the former nursing technical course. "Hey Martha, remember Valeria? The one that did internship with you? She was going to start at a career work today, but it punctured. The boss needs someone urgent." Without thinking, Marta replied, "Top, Jurema, but there is one detail. The woman already has her data. Valeria sent everything with your name. To her, you are Valeria." Martha stared at the phone for a few seconds. "So, you know that moment when life invites you to lie, and you just accept the invitation? Okay, today, I'm Valeria." And so, the lie that would last 6 months began. And the worst? It was just the beginning. The neighborhood was Santa Felicidade, a noble area of Curitiba, where the houses have more cameras than people smiling. Uber stopped in front of an imposing townhouse, with electronic gate and 2 symmetrical garden to have been done by a human being, with life. Marta got out of the car with her bag on her shoulder, true identity at the bottom of her wallet, and the fake name at the tip of her tongue, touched the intercom. "Who is it?" asked a dry voice with that accent of those who speak psychological with more syllables than he should. "Valeria, the caregiver." "Oh yes, you can enter." The gate opened with a snap, the type of crack that already announces, "Here, everything is watched." Marta came in, trying to look confident, or at least to look at Valeria she imagined. In the living room, a woman was sitting in a white linen armchair with a tablet in her hand and a silk scarf in her neck. It was Laura, the patient's daughter, and, as Martha would realize in the following days, CEO of the particular universe that it was that house. "Valeria?" he asked, raising an eyebrow with the accuracy of a drone doing facial recognition. "Yes. Good morning. Welcome. My father is in the room on the 2nd floor. He doesn't talk much, but understands everything. And I like things my way, okay?" "Ah, wonder," Marta thought. That typical passive anti-Ziv chief that serves a demand in the crystal bowl. "It can leave. I like to work with routine," he said, smiling. "And for taste, I wanted to say survive like that, because if it is not at the base of the routine, it is outbreak." When climbing, he saw the patient for the first time. "You're Jaime." The half-lost look, the tired face. A man who was already big and now seemed bent in silence. Martha approached slowly. "Good morning, you Jaime. I am Valeria. I will take care of the Lord from today." He didn't answer. It only stared at her for a few seconds. Looked still, but curious, as if they were thinking, "This is not the one who says it is." Marta swallowed swallowed dry. It was just the first day, and it already seemed to be acting in a play where everyone knew the script, except her. At 3 in the afternoon, while preparing a tea, he heard Laura talking on the phone in the room. "Of course, Mom. I know it's risky, but Valeria seems reliable. We needed someone, right?" Marta froze. He waited for the call to finish and took a deep breath. She couldn't make a mistake. Any hesitance, and the lie castle collapsed. At night, when he left, Laura called her aside. "Valeria, a question. Have you worked with Alzheimer's before?" Martha hesitated. Inside, a fire. On the outside, a technical smile. "Now yes, excellent, because my father sometimes mixes things. Speak names, invent stories. It doesn't take everything to the letter, okay?" Marta nodded, but something in that sentence was echoing in the head. Invent stories. In that house, it wasn't just she who lied. Every rich house has a place where poor does not enter, and is usually not by hygiene. It is for poorly resolved history. In Laura's house, it was the room of the end of the hall. Locked, always. Even with sick father, even with the new caregiver needing easy access. Closed door, closed curtain, subject, even more closed. In the second week of work, Marta had already decorated the habits of the house. Laura left at 9 a.m. in point, returned at 7 p.m. with the mood of those who fought with 3 spreadsheets and an invisible husband. Coffee was always soluble. Yes, rich people also suffer, and lunch came from a vegan restaurant that called brown rice sensory experience. His Jaime, on the other hand, spent his days alternating between silence and whispers that gradually Martha began to decipher. Loose words, fragments, and a name that appeared more and more. Clara. "Is Clara someone in the family, you Jaime?" she asked one day as she spent ointment on the wounds of his legs. "Clara doesn't count," he murmured with a more alive than usual look. It was as if, for a second, he had returned into himself. It is noticed that there was someone there willing to listen. That same day, Martha was putting clothes in the laundry when she saw a fallen key behind the washing machine. He picked up, small, old, with a recorded number, 4, 4th 4, he thought. He looked around. The house was empty, Laura still at work, and the silence, that silence of those who have a chance to make bullshit with style. He climbed slowly, feeling the grinding floor under his foot. He stopped in front of the locked door. Tested the key, Giro, click. The room was dark, smelling of stopped wood, heavy curtains, furniture covered by sheets. Martha lit the light. Pictures of a smiling woman, old photographs, a guitar leaning against the corner, and on top of the dresser, a box of cards tied with a red ribbon. In one of them, the treed letter said, "For Clara, with all the love they never let me give." Martha held the letter as if it were an emotional grenade about to explode. That's when he heard the electronic gate opening. Laura had arrived. Early. She turned off the light, locked her room with trembling hands, and descended trying to look casual, like who descended just to drink water, but with the adrenaline of those who escaped a passion crime. That night, lying at home, Marta could not sleep, because now it was not just the fear of being discovered as false caregiver. It was the fear of taking care of a man who knew too much, and to live in a house that buried memories, like who sweeps dust under a Persian rug. Curitiba had dawned with a fine drizzle, that mood between the "I'm going out" and "doesn't even try." Perfect to dim the life of others with less guilt. Marta arrived at the house and found Laura out, as always. "Valeria, today he's more silent than usual. Keep an eye out. And please don't move at all upstairs. It's important to me, okay?" The "okay" from Laura, it was not a question, it was warning. Marta responded with a neutral smile, the one that experienced caregivers learn to use when they want to hide dangerous thoughts. As soon as he was alone, he climbed straight to the forbidden room. The key was in the bag, well stored between a scarf and a generic ointment tube. Inside the room, everything seemed the same, but Martha was different. Now she wanted to know who was clear, and why no one talked about her. He took another letter from the box. Date, 1996, signed by J, and with a handwriting that left no doubt. It was his own Jaime. "Clara, I tried to make us accept us, but they are afraid. Fear of what you represent. They think you took me from myself. Laura will never understand." Laura, the name appeared as a slap for Pellica. The daughter who now sent in the house, and that she had clearly made a point of erasing Clara from family history. Martha stood there, standing with the letter in her hands, as if she had just opened a wound with her own fingers. When descending, the silence was different. His Jaime stared at her from the room armchair. "Look straight," almost challenging. "You read?" he said, with a low but clear voice. Marta frozen. "What?" "The letters I saw in your eyes. You read Clara." Silence. After a few seconds, Martha sat in front of him. "Who was she, you Jaime?" He took a deep breath. He looked at the window, as if looking for a memory outside. She was everything, and that's why left. At that moment, Martha was sure Clara was not a caregiver. not a nurse, not even a family friend. Clara was the great scandal of the house, and your Jaime never forgot. Before Martha could ask more questions, the electronic gate opened. Laura had returned, again, earlier than normal. Martha hid the letter inside the lab coat and stood up as if adjusting the chair pillow. Laura entered the room. He looked at the two, then he stared at Marta. "Valeria, can we talk there in the kitchen?" In her voice, a pause that sounded more threatening than any scream. Marta took a deep breath. The lie was starting to crack. And who leans too much in the past ends up covered with shrapnel. The kitchen was impeccable. As always, cold, silent, with that slight smell of cleaning mixed with tension. Laura leaned against the marble counter, crossed her arms, and went to the point. "Valeria, I'll be very clear. I noticed that you are circulating upstairs frequently." Martha held firmly on the lab coat, as if that would prevent her lie from slipping from her face. "I went to pick up bedding. The closet ones were smelling of guarded." Laura smiled, but it was that professional smile. The kind one gives before you sticked a verbal stab. "You know the room shouldn't be opened, right?" "Yes, I do," Marta answered, a firm voice, trying to look offended by insinuation. Laura approached, now less than a meter away. The last caregiver who got into where she shouldn't lasted 3 days. Martha felt a cold in her back. For a second, he thought of dropping everything, apologizing, getting out with some dignity, and inventing another identity in another neighborhood. But it was right now that his Jaime appeared at the kitchen door, slowly, supported by the cane, with a serious expression. "Laura, I need to talk to Valeria, alone." Laura was static. The father rarely communicated so clearly, and never asking privacy. "Dad, it's not time now, Laura." She hesitated, then left the kitchen without saying a word. Her jump hitting the floor echoed like a timer for the collapse. His Jaime sat at the table and pointed to the chair ahead. Marta obeyed, still stunned. "Why are you doing this?" he asked, his eyes fixed on her. "What?" "Getting to someone else." "I know you are not Valeria. That girl was too arrogant to take care of me." Marta didn't answer, only lowered his eyes. He knew. "And now, you're good. Take care of me with patience. It does not treat this as a favor. It treats how humanity." He leaned over his chair and looked up, as if he talked to the ceiling. "Clara took care of me like that?" Marta looked at him, surprised. "Was she caregiver?" "No, it was my nurse at the beginning. Then it turned everything." Silence. He looked again at Marta. "You want to know who she was? I see it in your eyes. But I will only tell you if you continue here, by my side. Like who you are, not like this invented Valeria." Marta swallowed dry, because now the most vulnerable man in the house knew of lies. And yet, he chose to trust her. But there was a problem. "And Laura, if she finds out..." He gave a half smile, tired but sharp. "She already suspects, but I'm still her father. And if I say you stay, you stay." Marta nodded. For the first time in weeks, he felt he was there like herself, not like a disguise, not like a scam, but as someone who, even on crooked ways, went to exactly where it should be. But as everything in rich and repressed life, this truce would have a period of expiration, and someone at some point would pay the lie of the lie. 2 weeks passed, and against all the odds, Martha was firm. More than that, it was in control. Laura avoided long conversations, but respected her father's boundaries. His Jaime, in turn, seemed to relive a piece of life every morning, and Martha, still using the fake name on the paycheck, took care of him as if clearing the horny mirror of a forgotten story. That Wednesday, after the bath, Seu Jaime asked, "Martha, helps me find a blue folder. It must be in my closet, in the background, with some documents." She went up. He opened the drawer he described and found the paste. Inside, certificates, exams, and an envelope with his letter. "Testament changes. Draft." "Okay, it's not my business," said Marta, but right. Who resists a brown envelope with a time pump label? Opened, and there it was. A name on paper that did not beat with any other acquaintance of the house. Clara Aparecida Rocha, beneficiary of 20% of the goods. Marta read and reread. 20% to Clara. But Clara, as far as she knew, was missing from the narrative for over 20 years. He returned to the living room with the folder in his hands and eyes full of question marks. "You Jaime, is Clara still alive?" He smiled, sad. "I think so, but never let me find her." "And Laura?" "Well, Laura preferred to pretend she never existed." Martha felt her stomach turn. That went far beyond a forbidden romance. It was a cold war, and she had just stumbled into a nuclear warhead. And as life has dramatic timing, Laura entered the house right now. "Father, it is good too." He nodded calmly. "Marta was helping me with some folders." Laura looked straight at Marta. That look at those who make mistakes like a hunting dog sniffs blame. The next day, Laura arrived before the usual. He entered without hitting his father's room, and minutes later he called Martha in the room. "Valeria, I who you really are. We need to talk." Marta swallowed dry. "I read the draft of the will," Laura said, throwing the envelope on the table. "And I want to make it clear that it changes nothing. What my father did under the influence of medication or emotional manipulation is not valid. I didn't handle anyone. Of course, because entering my house with false name is what? A therapeutic method?" Martha stared at Laura firmly. The mask had already fallen, for both. "I entered here to survive, but I was because he wanted to, because I take care of him like no one else here had the courage to do." Laura laughed, a short laugh full of poison. "You don't know who you are dealing with. And do you know who you were dealing with? With the woman your father loved and you deleted." Silence. Laura's eyes narrowed. "You will leave this house today. And if you try to get closer again, I end up with your life. Did you understand?" Martha looked at her. It took 2 seconds and answered, "No, I still don't understand, but I'm about to find out." Marta left the house with a boiling head. It didn't cry. It didn't even shouted. He only walked down the street like a bucket of water at the top of his head. Any false movement and all overflows. In the bag, something heavy, a tape cassette of those old ones. Found inside the drawer of his Jaime's dresser, wrapped in a scarf with a short note, "If one day you leave, take this to you." It was his letter. Marta knew. That night, after putting her daughter to sleep, she went to the neighbor next door, a retired electronics, and asked for a favor. "You, Rubens, do you still have that VCR?" "I have, for sure." "Why? Are you going to review Titanic? Something much more tragic." She watched alone. Small screen, squeaking sound, granulated image. But the content? Very clear. It was a 1999 recording. Your younger Jaime sitting in front of the camera. Beside him, a woman. Clara, brunette, straight hair, firm expression, elegant effortlessly. Look at those who had already faced a lot and still stared at the world head on. We are recording this because I know that one day no one will believe in our story, and because I'm afraid of what my daughter can do with Clara's memory. Fear of how she will tell or erase everything. Clara was not a mistake. It was my only hit. The ribbon followed with homemade scenes. The two cooking together, walking hand in hand in the backyard, laughing with a dog of clutch. Love in gross state, of that kind that does not match porcelain homes and heirs who are CEOs of morality. In the end, Jaime was looking at the camera and said, "If someone is seeing this, take care of the truth, even if it is inconvenient." Marta turned off the device and stood there in silence. A full silence. Dense. She now knew everything, or at least everything that mattered. And for the first time, he felt that lie he told for 6 months. Maybe he had served to reveal much larger lies. The next morning, he returned to Laura's house, did not touch the bell, delivered an envelope for the porter. To Laura, urgent. Inside, a copy of the digitized tape and a short letter. "This is your father's story, and the woman you tried to erase. Now the choice is yours. Keep lying, or give him the worthy end he deserves." Martha, without disguise. No false name, without fear. His Jaime died on a gray Friday, as if Curitiba had decided to combine the mood with the mourning. The death note came out without fuss. Only name, age, and time of the funeral. No word about who he was really. No mention of Clara. In the cemetery, half a dozen relatives in expensive clothes, but expressions of empty seat. Marta arrived in a simple dress, hair tied, her daughter by the hand. He said nothing. I didn't even need to. Laura, in impeccable black, seemed made of marble. Seeing Martha, he approached slowly, as if he chooses whether he wants to explode or keep the pose. "Did you come to the final show?" she whispered, forcing a social smile. "No, I came to make sure he has a less false farewell than the life you tried to write to him." Laura took a deep breath. The anger throbbed, but it was stuck, as it always was, behind the unshakable woman's facade. "The tape was handed over to my mother," he said, without looking at her. "She cried for 3 hours. He said he always knew, but he preferred the silence to the scandal. The silence also kills," Marta answered. The ceremony was brief. Father barely knew the name of Jaime complete. He said he was a family man, and Marta almost laughed. Not mocking, sadness. When they asked someone to say a few words, no one moved. Neither an uncle nor a cousin. Nobody. It was Marta who took 2 steps ahead. "I'm not from the family. By the way, I spent 6 months pretending to be someone else to be here, but I took care of him. In truth, I saw him smile, cry, delirious, and remember. And the only thing he never forgot, it was Clara." Silence. "I won't talk about inheritances. No past. I just wanted to note that he loved it. He loved how few have the courage. And that, even silent, even forgotten, he still wanted to be remembered for that." Martha returned to her place. The daughter held her hand tightly, and at that moment, she felt that of all the lies told, That was the only one worthwhile. In the end, Laura approached again, without anger, without arrogance, only with the tiredness of who was won by what he avoided for a lifetime. Clara died in 2008. Cancer. He lived in an inn inside, alone. Marta nodded. He deserved to know. I know, but we always think there is more time, right? Laura took something out of her bag and handed over to Marta. The key for. He wanted you to have that. Marta didn't ask why. I didn't even need to. Because deep down, even with changed names, lied lives, and deleted stories, there was something between her and her Jaime that was totally true. The way she saw him and the way he recognized her.